India and the Prerequisites of Communism by Babasaheb Ambedkar. Chapter 1, Part 2. How far does the Hindu social order recognize these tenets? The inquiry is necessary, for it is only in so far as it recognizes these tenets that it will have the title to be called a free social order. Does the Hindu social order recognize the individual? Does it recognize his distinctiveness, his moral responsibility? Does it recognize him as an end in himself, as a subject not merely of disabilities but also of rights, even against the state? As a starting point for the discussion of the subject, one may begin by referring to the words of the Exodus, where Jehovah says to Ezekiel, "Behold, all souls are mine as the soul of the Father. So also the soul of the Son is mine, the soul that sinister, it shall die. The Son shall not bear the iniquity of the Father, neither shall the Father bear the iniquity of the Son. The righteousness of the righteousness shall be upon him, and the wickedness of the wicked upon him." Here is emphasized the distinctiveness of the individual and his moral responsibility. The Hindu social order does not recognize the individual as the center of social purpose. For the Hindu social order is based primarily on class or varna and not on individuals. Originally and formally, the Hindu social order recognized four classes: Brahmins, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Shudras. Today it consists of five classes, the fifth being the Panchamas or untouchables. The unit of Hindu society is not the individual Brahmin or the individual Kshatriya or the individual Vaishya or the individual Shudra or the individual Panchama. Even the family is not regarded by the Hindu social order as the unit of society except for the purposes of marriage and inheritance. The unit of Hindu social order is the class or varna, to use the Hindu technical term for class. In the Hindu social order, there is no room for individual merit and no consideration of individual justice. If the individual has a privilege, it is not because it is due to him personally. The privilege goes with the class, and if he is found to enjoy it, it is because he belongs to that class. Countrywide, if an individual is suffering from a wrong, it is not because he is by his conduct deserves it. The disability is the disability imposed upon the class, and if he is found to be laboring under it, it is because he belongs to that class. Does the Hindu social order recognize fraternity? The Hindus, like the Christians and the Muslims, do believe that men are created by God. But while the Christians and the Muslims accept this as the whole truth, the Hindus believe that this is the only truth. According to them, the whole truth consists of two parts. The first part is that men are created by God. The second part is that God created different men from different parts of his divine body. The Hindus regard the second part as more important and more fundamental than the first. The Hindu social order is based on the doctrine that men are created from the different parts of the divinity, and therefore the view expressed by Paul or the Pilgrim Fathers has no place in it. The Brahmin is no brother to the Kshatriya, because the former is born from the mouth of the divinity, while the latter from the arms. The Kshatriya is no brother to the Vaishya, because the former is born from the arms and the latter from his thighs. As no one is a brother to the other, no one is the keeper of the other. The doctrine that the different classes were created from different parts of the divine body has generated the belief that it must be divine will that they should remain separate and distinct. It is this belief which has created in the Hindu an instinct to be different, to be separate, and to be distinct from the rest of his fellow Hindus. Compare the following rules in the Manusmriti regarding the Upanayan, or the investiture of a body with the sacred thread. 2. 36. In the 8th year after conception, one should perform the initiation, Upanayan, of a Brahmani, in the 11th after conception, that of a Kshatriya, but in the 12th, that of a Vaishya. 2. 41. Let students, according to the order of their castes, wear as upper dress the skins of black antelope, spotted deer, and he-goats, and lower garments made of hemp flax or wool. 242. The girdle of a Brahmana shall consist of a triple cord of manga grass, smooth and soft that of a Kshatriya, of a bowstring made of marva fibers that of a Vaishya, of hempen threads. 243. If munga grass and so forth be not procurable, the girdles may be made of kusa, asmantaka, and belbaga fibers with single threefold knot, or with 3 or 5 knots according to the custom of the family. 244. The sacrificial string of a Brahmana shall be made of cotton, shall be twisted to the right, and consist of 3 threads, that of a Kshatriya of hempen threads, and that of a Vaishya of woolen threads. 245. A Brahmana shall carry according to sacred law a staff of Bilva or Palasa, a Kshatriya of Vata or Khadira, and a Vaishya of Pillu or Udumbara. 246. The staff of a Brahmin shall be made of such length as to reach the end of his hair, that of a Kshatriya to reach his forehead, and that of a Vaishya to reach the tip of his nose. 248. Having taken a staff according to his choice, having worshipped the sun and walked round the fire, turning his right hand towards it, the student should beg alms according to the prescribed rule. 249. An initiated Brahmana should beg, beginning his request with the word lady, bhavati, a Kshatriya placing the word lady in the middle, but a Vaishya placing it at the end of the formula. On reading this, one may well ask the reasons for such distinctions. The above rules refer to students or what are called brahmacharya, ready to enter upon the study of the Vedas. Why should there be these distinctions? Why should the ages of Upanayana of the Brahmin boy differ from that of the Kshatriya or Vaishya? Why should their garments be of a different kind? Why should their material of girdle cords be different? Why should the material of strings be different? Why should their staves be of different trees? Why should their staves differ in length? Why, in uttering the formula for asking alms, they should place the word bhavati in different places? These differences are not necessary nor advantageous. The only answer is that they are as a result of the Hindu instinct to be different from his fellow, which has resulted from the belief of people being innately different, owing to their being created from different parts of the divine body. It is also the Hindu instinct, due to the same belief, never to overlook a difference if it does exist, but to emphasize it, recognize it, and to blazon it forth. If there is a caste, its existence must be signalized by a distinguishing headdress and by a distinguishing name. If there is a sect, it must have its headmark. There are 92 sects in India. Each has a separate headmark for itself. To invent 92 marks, each one different from the other, is a colossal business. The very impossibility of it would have had the most ingenious person to give up the task. Yet the Hindus have accomplished it, as may be seen from the pictorial representation of these marks given by Moore in his Hindu pantheon. The most extensive and wild manifestation of this spirit of isolation and separation is, of course, the caste system. It is understandable that caste in a single number cannot exist. Caste can only exist in plural. There can be castes, but there cannot be such a thing as a caste. But granting that theoretically castes must exist in plural, number how many castes should there be? Originally there were 4 only. Today how many are there? It is estimated that the total is not less than 2,000. It might be 3,000. This is not the only staggering aspect of this fact. There are others. Castes are divided into subcastes. Their number is legion. The total population of the Brahmin caste is about 1.5 crore. But there are 1886 subcastes of Brahmin caste. In the Punjab alone, the Saraswat Brahmins are divided into 469 subcastes. The Kayasthas of Punjab are divided into 890 subcastes. One could go on giving figures to show this infinite process of splitting social life into small fragments. The splitting process has made a social life quite impossible. It has made the caste split into such small fragments that it has marital relationship consistent with the rule of excluded degrees quite impossible. Some of the Banya subcastes count no more than 100 families. They are so interrelated they find it extremely difficult to marry within their caste without transgressing the rules of consanguinity. It is noteworthy that small excuses suffice to bring about the splitting of castes into subcastes. Castes become subdivided into subcastes by reason of change of location, change of occupation, change in social practices, change due to pollution, changes due to increased prosperity, changes due to quarrel, and changes due to the change of religion. Mr. Blunt has given many instances to illustrate this tendency among the Hindus. There is no space to reproduce all except one, which shows how ordinary quarrels lead to the splitting of one caste into subcastes. As stated by Mr. Blunt, in Lucknow, there was a subcaste of Khatika consisting of three ghols or groups known as Manikpur, Jaiswala, and Dalman. They intermarried, ate together, and met together in Panchayat under the presidency of their Chaudharis or headmen. 20 years ago, each group had one Chaudhary, but now Jaiswala have three, and Manikpur two. The quarrel was as follows. Firstly, a woman, her ghol is not given, peddled fruit about the streets. The brethren ordered her to desist from the practice, which is derogatory to the caste's dignity. Women should only sell in shops. Her husband and she proved contumacious, and finally their own ghol, acting singly, outcast the man. The Dalmu ghol, however, dissenting from this action, admitted the husband to communion with themselves upon payment of a fine of rupees 80 in lieu of excommunication. Secondly, a man, the ghol again is not given, was excommunicated by his own ghol acting alone, and while his case was under trial, the Jaiswala Chaudhary invited him to dinner by mistake. Thereupon, the three ghols acting in concert fined the Chaudhary rupees 30. Lastly, fines had accumulated and it was decided to hold a katha, sacred recitation. The Dalmu Chaudhary said he preferred to have his share of money, but the Manikpur Chaudhary, who seems to have kept the joint purse, refused, taking up the attitude that there was going to be a katha to which the Dalmu people could not come or not as they liked. The matter at this stage was brought into court. Meanwhile, the three ghols ceased to intermarry, so that one endogamous subcaste split into three quarrels. Ghol was pitted against ghol. If in any caste a group should adopt some new or unusual worship of which other members do not approve, one would expect that group to break off and become an endogamous subcaste. That subcastes are uncommon is due to the tolerance about what and with whom he eats and whom he marries. We do, however, find that the Mahabhiras and the Panchapriya subcastes among the Telis, Koris, and the Namakshalis amongst Barhais, Bhangis, and Khaderas. How do these castes behave towards one another? The guiding principle is to be separate, do not intermarry, do not interdine, and do not touch. Mr. Blunt has well described the situation when he says, a Hindu sits down to a meal either alone or with his caste fellows. The women cannot eat with the men, they wait till their lords have finished. So long as the meal or a part of it consists of kacha food, as it usually does since chapatis appear at most meals, the man must dine with the precautions of a magic ceremony. He sits within a square marked off on the ground, chauka, inside which is chulha or cooking place. Should a stranger's shadow fall upon this square, all food cooked within it is polluted and must be thrown away. In camp, Hindu servants may be seen, each well apart from the rest, each within his own chauka, cooking his food upon his own mud oven and eating alone. Rules regarding the acceptance of water are on the whole the same as those regarding the acceptance of a pakka food, but with a tendency to greater laxity. The vessel in which the water is contained affects the question. A high caste man will allow a low caste man to fill his lota drinking vessel from him, but he will not drink from the lota of that low caste man. Or a high caste man will give no anybody, save untouchables, a drink by pouring water from his own lota into that of the drinker. All the men employed at stations to supply railway travellers with water are barhais, bans, barbunjans, halwais, kahars, and nais, and of course from higher castes still. Rules regarding smoking are stricter. It is very seldom that a man will smoke with anybody but a caste fellow. The reason, no doubt, is that smoking with a man usually involves smoking his pipe, and this involves much closer contact even than eating food which he has prepared. So stringent is this rule indeed that the fact that Jats, Ahirs, and Gujars will smoke together has been regarded as a ground for supposing that they are closely akin. Some castes, the Kayastha for instance, differentiate between smoking in a fashion in which the hands are closely round the pipe and the smoke is drawn in without putting the stem actually in the mouth, and smoking in the usual way. Little need to be said on the subject of vessels. There are rules laying down what sort of vessel should be made, but they are rather religious than social. Hindus must use brass or alloy, although the use of alloy is hedged about by numerous and minute injunctions, and if such vessels become impure, the only remedy is to get them remolded. The risk of pollution makes it imperative for every man to have a few vessels of his own. The minimum consists of a vessel, drinking vessel, batna, cooking pot, and thali dish. Better class folk add a katora, spoon, and a gagra, water pot. For feasts, the brotherhood usually keeps a set of larger vessels of all kinds, which they end to the host. These are brought with the proceeds of fines and are common property. What fraternity can there be in a social order based upon such sentiments? Far from working in the spirit of fraternity, the mutual relations of the castes are fratricidal. Class consciousness, class struggle, and class wars are supposed to be ideologies which came into vogue from the writings of Karl Marx. This is a complete mistake. India is the land which has experienced class consciousness, class struggle. Indeed, India is the land where there has been a class war between Brahmins and Kshatriyas which lasted for several generations and which was fought so hard and with such virulence that it turned out to be but a war of extermination. It must not be supposed that the fratricidal war has given place to a spirit of fraternity. The same spirit of separation marks the Hindu social order as may be seen from what follows. Each class claims a separate origin. Some claim an origin from a rishi or from a hero. But in each case, it is different rishi or a different hero having nothing to do with the rishis and heroes claimed by other castes as their progenitors. Each caste is engaged in nothing but establishing for itself a status superior to that of the other caste. This is best illustrated by the rules of hypercommunality and the rules of hypergamy. As pointed out by Mr. Blunt, it is essential to realize that in respect of the cooking taboo, the criterion is the caste of the person who cooks the food, not the caste of the person who offers it. It follows, therefore, that a high caste Hindu can eat the food of a man of any caste, however low, if his host possesses a cook of suitable caste. And that is why so many cooks are Brahmins. The Hindu draws a distinction between kacha food, which is cooked in water, and pakka food, which is cooked with ghee, clarified butter. This distinction depends upon the principle that ghee, like all products of the sacred cow, protects from impurity. And since such protection is the subject of all food taboos, this convenient fiction enables the Hindu to be less particular in the case of pakka food than of kacha food, and to relax his restrictions accordingly. Speaking of hypergamy, Mr. Blunt says, the custom of hypergamy introduces an important modification into the marriage laws of many castes, where it reveals the exogamous groups are classified according to their social position, and whilst a group of highest rank will take brides from it, it will not give brides to a group of lower rank. The law is found most highly developed amongst Rajputs, but it is observed by many other castes. Indeed, amongst all Hindus, there is probably a tendency towards hypergamy. What is it that has behind these rules regarding hypercommunality and hypergamy? Nothing else but the spirit of high and low. All castes are infested with that spirit, and there is no caste which is free from it. The Hindu social order is a ladder of castes placed one above the other together, representing an ascending scale of hatred and a descending scale of contempt. This spirit has exhibited itself in the proverbs coined by one caste with this object of lampooning another caste. It has given rise even to literature by authors of low caste suggesting filthy origin of the so-called high caste. The Sahyadri Khand is the best illustration of it. It is one of the Puranas which form part of the Hindu sacred literature. It is a Purana of a style quite different from the traditional Puranas. It deals with the origin of the different castes. In doing so, it assigns noble origin to other castes, while it assigns to the Brahmin caste the filthiest origin. Does the Hindu social order recognize equality? The answer must be in the negative. That men are born equal is a doctrine which is repugnant to the Hindu social order. In the spiritual sense, it treats the doctrine as false. According to the Hindu social order, even though it is true that men are the children of Prajapati, the creator of the universe, they are not equal on that account. For they were created from the different parts of the body of Prajapati. The Brahmins were created from the mouth, the Kshatriyas from the arms, the Vaishyas from the thighs, and the Shudras from his feet. The limbs from which they are created being of unequal value, the men thus created are as unequal. In the biological sense, the Hindu social order does not bother to examine whether the doctrine is founded in a fact. If it was not a fact, that is, men were not equal in their character and natural endowments of character and intelligence, so much the better. On the other hand, if it was a fact, that is, men were equal in character and natural endowments, so much the worse for the doctrine. The Hindu social order is indifferent to the doctrine as a fact. It is equally indifferent to it as an ethical principle. It refuses to recognize that men, no matter how profoundly they differ as individuals in capacity and character, are equally entitled as human beings to consideration and respect, and that the well being of a society is likely to be increased if it so plans its organization that, whether their powers are great or small, all its members may be equally enabled to make the best of such powers as they possess. It will not allow equality of circumstances, institution, and manner of life. It is against equality temper. The end.